So I'm going to continue doing my makeup and talking to you because that is just something that feels comfortable to me. And there's so many things I've realized I do that comfort me, and like makeup is one of those things. So I don't know what it is, but it just feels so calming. And I'm at this stage now in my life, once again, when I'm feeling very, very burnt out and not like myself, and like I don't know what I'm doing, and generally just feel bad and sad and and not in the best of places. And whenever I end up in this kind of position, I realize just how much white supremacy or white supremacism rather affects me, even though I'm very, very far from the birthplace of this ideology, even though I'm not a white person and I'm not a Christian person, and I've never asked to be subscribed to this ideology. It is an ideology of hegemony, and if you don't agree, well, you can tell me more about it and tell me how I'm wrong, but I find so many instances in which white supremacy hurts me, and it hurts me from the inside. Like, I think as if I am a white man, basically, because that's the perspective that's been shared with me since I was a wee child, through literature, through movies, through media, and I just got used to it. And I used to feel so much shame surrounding so many areas of my life just because I felt like I was ungrateful for all the privilege that I have. But then I stopped to think and I realized that I don't have most of these privileges because I'm not a white man. But the thing that I've been thinking about the most lately has been community building, because this is something that I want to focus my efforts on. If one has any kind of an individual issue, be it childhood trauma or just, a great sense of inadequacy that many people nowadays possess, this is not something that can be solved on your own. And community care and community healing is something that I've been looking into lately, just because I've tried for many years to power through all of these things, like my childhood trauma, my neurodivergent ways of thinking and being, and I was not able to make much progress, and I would grow very frustrated with myself and feel like a complete and utter failure and feel like it was just me not trying hard enough, which is a very common narrative nowadays, and the psychiatric industrial complex is not really helping because it basically kind of reinforces this belief that, yeah, you're just not trying hard enough, you're just not doing enough CBT, and you should just change all those patterns of behavior that have been formed since your early childhood, not of your own choosing. You should just change them, what's the big deal? But apart from that, I've been realizing just how much many of my problems stem from the desire to control not only myself but also others, and it was not in any way or form community centered. So I would continuously try and predict other people's reactions to my own behavior, because this is what's been taught to me. I was taught to always expect danger, and I never felt safe beside people who were supposed to be the safest people to me. So I felt like I couldn't trust anyone, and I always had to be on high alert in order to prevent something bad happening to me. And then I felt personally responsible for anything bad that happened to me, especially if I didn't take 10 million precautions, then it was obviously my fault. And then as I grew older, I noticed that this wasn't just me, and that wasn't just my family, that this was the predominant ideology, that this is how many people were taught to perceive the world. And then I started thinking, how is that even possible? If we don't do anything and everything in our power to prevent harm, then we deserve the harm. So, and the whole just world hypothesis thing, of course, is very helpful in realizing how one cannot be accountable for every single bad thing that happens to them. But the way that this ties back to white supremacy is that white supremacy is isolationist and individualistic at its core. We are taught to, in the white supremacy types, ideologies, and cultures, we are taught to perceive ourselves as if we are this single entity that is responsible for everything that happens to them, and that has certain peculiar personality traits that they don't really have much control over, but they must be able to control by overcoming themselves. So this whole narrative of overcoming and becoming this Ubermensch, if you will, is very, very common in a lot of those Western type ideologies. And the whole archetype of a hero, this whole hero's journey, even though if you look at like Greek mythology and the way even Greeks, the ones who actually did contribute much to the formation of the latter Western ideology, even Greeks were very much community based, and a lot of the Greek myth heroes were not about a particular hero, they were about what can happen to a person and what this person can do with the consequences of their own actions, and how all of the other circumstances are going to affect them. Like even if you like look at the Iliad and the Odyssey, you will see that it is not a single hero story. It is a story of many people and how their interaction weave into this one interesting, peculiar tale. But aside from that, it's the fact that the Western ideology and the capitalist ideology is so heavily focused on individual progress and individual healing is what is very much stopping many of us from progress, because we can't heal on our own. We have to heal cooperatively together in communities, and we have to collectively bear the responsibility for each other. And it is a dialectical kind of a connection where the well-being of one enforces the well-being of all the others, and the well-being of the community is going to guarantee the well-being of an individual. So it is a very intimately linked connection, which people of the past, I think, realized much more than we do nowadays. And I know that oftentimes I sound like I glorify the past, but that's not the case. I understand that people back then had their own, flawed ways of thinking, and this all manifests in us, having all of these different perceptions that may or may not be helpful or unhelpful. But overall, I feel like there were many societies in the past and many ways of communal living where people didn't feel isolated, and they didn't feel like they were personally responsible for every single thing that ever happened to them, and they had the support of their local communities, and they never were left alone to their own devices, and they were able to heal some of the things that might have happened to them, no matter whether they were guilty of participating in something that might have brought them harm. And in this, I see the course for ourselves. Like, I think that we need to learn from the traditions of the past. Of course, different groups would have practiced all of these things differently depending on various circumstances. But I see a lot of commonalities in the way that indigenous peoples of places, like even in the cultures that surround me in the region I live, there are so many tales about how people lived communally and how they helped each other. And I'm sure that the vast majority of cultures, if you look at the mythology, if you kind of dig through the white lens and get to the actual story, you will see a lot of those narratives that support communal healing and communal care, and not just this individualist hero who would do everything on their own and be self-sufficient. And self-sufficiency is such a funny thing to me. Like, have you ever imagined just being completely on your own? Because I have, and let me tell you, it sounds boring and terrifying, even to the person like me who gets very tired from interacting with others. I just feel like if I was living on my own, completely self-sufficiently, I would just get bored, and I would just talk to like birds and stones and whatnot, because I love talking. Even now, in the act of filming the video and talking to the camera in my room on my own, I'm kind of proving the point that when they're in my mind, these thoughts don't really make much sense to me. But when I speak them out loud to this other, Lacanian or not, I am able to make sense of the world, to make sense of myself, and I feel better after I do this. So this is what I've been sharing for the longest time here on my channel, that by talking to others, you are talking to yourself. You are making sense of the world around you, and whether people around you fully understand and fully support you, you need a witness. You need a witness to be able to process a lot of the things that happen to you, and this has been like this forever. It's not a new thing. It's not an invention of modern times, and it is the way it's supposed to be. I personally kind of hate the whole human nature argument, but if there is anything that is in our nature, it is to want to connect to other people in order to gain a better understanding of ourselves. It is through others we become ourselves. And I know how pathos-filled that sounds, but that's just something that I see time and time again, and I just can't deny it anymore. And I know that I have to learn to embrace my own vulnerability, because a part of the reason why I don't film more videos or speak more openly about some stuff is because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of people's reactions. I'm afraid that people will say and do things that I don't like, and my feelings are going to get hurt, and I'm going to sit there and cry. But you know what? That's going to happen anyway. Whether I talk to people or not, I still will end up upset with one thing or another, and I will also feel extremely isolated. This is what I have been feeling for the majority of my life. and I don't want to continue feeling that way. So I'm going to continue filming silly little videos, just putting makeup on my face and talking to myself and wait for people's reactions and train myself and learn not to take everything too personally and realize that I cannot control other people, and if I want to be in community with others, I should take the bad with the good. Like, I cannot just expect everyone to always agree with me and for us to always perfectly align. I am willing to embark on this journey, and if you're interested, you can stick around as well. But yeah, we need to put community healing as our priority, and we need to realize that we cannot heal ourselves from all these ideological mishaps on our own. And yeah, let's keep this conversation going, certainly, and I'll talk to you all later.